And there we go. Thank you very much, Avi.
Okay, morning everyone. So I have it's quite useful actually because I have a share that I've had in my back pocket for 2 years. It's Shavuot 2 years ago. I'll tell you why. Because some of you might remember 2 years ago we had an event for Shavuot for the kids. We were doing an ice cream in the park event, and one of them bought football, and I thought, oh, I'll be the cool sort of rabbi-ish guy, and I'll play football with the kids. Anyway, I broke my ankle playing football with the kids in the park on Shavuot 2 years ago, so that didn't go to plan. So I was supposed to give a share second day Shavuot, and I didn't get the chance to do it. So I've had this share for a while, and it's a good time to break it out. The only problem is I don't have it with me, so I'm doing it off the top of my head, and so I'm going to ask more interactive because the share was based on the premise that I wanted to look at the similarities and differences between Ruth and between Esther. And it's very interesting. My Rav, did anyone come to the Sunday of Inspiration? Did anyone see Rabbi Jesse Horn? Did anyone? Yes, you saw him speak. Okay, so you might have seen him do this style. He has a particular style where he compares and contrasts two characters from Tanakh. I don't know if that was the show you went to. And this is really was a bit of an homage to him, what this show was supposed to be. It's going to be in his style, comparing and contrasting Ruth and Esther. And what really caused this to come about was the fact that again, many people know that Megillah Esther is my favorite book in Tanakh. And I don't know if one's allowed to say they have a least favorite book in Tanakh, so I won't say that. But I've never been that interested in Megillah Rutz. I found it difficult to kind of get into. And I had that conversation with Rabbi Lister, and he told me, no, it's fantastic. It's amazing. He told me all the reasons Megillah Rutz is so amazing. And I went back and reread it again, and what I found was actually there's a lot of interesting parallels between the two. So I wanted to throw out what are the similarities, and I'll ask you this mostly because I don't have my notes, so hopefully you can fill in the gaps for me. But what are the similarities between Ruth and Esther that people can kind of think of? There are quite a few. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Both women. No, that's true, and not only are they both women, they are the only women who have a book named after them in Tanakh. And not only are they the only women that have a book named after them Tanakh, both of the books that are named after them are Megillot. So there is quite a deep sort of similarity there because they're sort of two very prominent women in Tanakh. Both have books named after them. The only two that have books named after them, I believe, and both Megillot as well. So that's a start. In terms of the story, the content, what are the other similarities? Very interesting. Okay, they both had a strong sense of identity as Jews, and that's 100% true. And we're going to come to speak about that as well. What else specifically with these two? Right, both of them had a connection. Both of them were royalty, right? Ruth was a Moabite princess who sort of left her homeland. She married a prominent Jewish individual who then died. And she then went off with her mother-in-law Naomi and became, as we know, she became very poor, and eventually she went on to marry Boaz. So she was a Moabite princess. Esther, as we know, became queen of Persia. So we have both of them being the idea of both of them being royalty. Anything else? We have the idea that both of them, I'm just reading, we have a note. Both had a single child who was then important in Jewish history from Keith Online. Both had a child who led to the redemption of the Jewish people. For Esther, it was Daryavesh. He wasn't Jewish, but nevertheless, well, he was Jewish because Esther was Jewish, but he wasn't part of the Jewish people. But nevertheless, he precipitated the Jewish people allowing to be returned to the land of Israel. For Ruth, we know that her descendants, her line eventually resulted in David HaMelech. So both of them had, and then eventually Mashiach. So both of them had children whose line would eventually lead to the redemption of the Jewish people. There's other interesting things as well. For both of them, they both had a mentor who was sort of an adopted parent figure. For Esther, you have Mordecai, who was her it became sort of her stepfather, or let's go with that interpretation. He became a stepfather. He was also her uncle. For Naomi, you had for Ruth, you had Naomi, who was her mother-in-law, and she became like a mother to her. For both of them, this particular individual who was their guide encouraged them and instructed them how to live life, and encouraged them to go and marry a particular individual. For Naomi, she instructed Ruth, go and marry Boaz. For Esther, Mordecai told her when the king's men came to take her to the palace, you have to go with them rather than sort of stay in hiding. You have to go with them and go to Achashverosh. And on that note, both of them married very prominent individuals in the community. For Esther, she married the king. Doesn't get much more prominent than that. For Ruth, she married Boaz, who we know he was the judge at the time. So he was really sort of the most prominent figure in the land, in the Jewish sort of culture and community at the time. So we see here we've got these immense similarities between their stories. And we can look at that and think it's really the same story almost being told twice. There's all these similarities that are sort of governing these two stories, and they're sort of pointing in the same direction. The royalty, the marriage, the children, everything that comes from them, even the actions, the fact that we said that they had, both of them showed this immense sort of declaration of faith. Wow, it's an amazing thing. So there's all these similarities that happen. However, there are also some exact opposites and exact differences between the two. And I want to look at those because I think it teaches us something very important. Does anyone want to, I'll throw it out again. Does anyone want to think of some exact opposites and differences between the two stories?
One wasn't born Jewish, one is.
Right, 100%. So one, what as Stephen says, one wasn't born Jewish and one is. But more than that, right, if we dig deeper into that a little bit, one wasn't born Jewish, but then became very fiercely, very proudly at the beginning of the story, becomes very proudly Jewish and very heroically Jewish in that time. The other one does the opposite. Esther is born Jewish, but she then hides her identity. Right, so we have the exact opposite. We have Ruth being not born Jewish, but then embracing her Jewish identity. Esther, born Jewish, hiding her Jewish identity. And to couple on to that, right, the first words that they say in the Megillah fit in with that contrast, right? What's the first words that Ruth says in the Megillah? Her very famous declaration. Wherever you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. Your land will be my land. One of the most heroic declarations in Jewish history, of Jewish faith, that we see. Your God will be my God, your people, wherever you go, I will go. She's signing on to a life of poverty, a life of hardship, a life potentially of misery, because she has made this commitment to her new identity and to her new family, to her mother. What's Esther's first words in the Megillah? Much, much less heroic. Much less heroic. Esther's first words in the Megillah are, Mordecai says, you've got to do something, all the Jewish people are going to be killed. What does Esther say? She says, everyone knows that you can't just go to the king. If I go to the king, I'm going to die. What do you want me to do about it? I can't do anything. Stop bothering me. That's what Esther said. No, I'm paraphrasing. But that's what Esther says, right? It's her first words in the beginner are, I can't do anything. What do you want me to do? So we see a real contrast there between Esther, who sort of starts with this idea of city life and countryside. Okay. Esther, who starts with this idea of, I can't really do anything. And Naomi, who starts with this idea of, wherever you go, I will go, your people will be my people. And there's this sort of real contrast between the two. And that contrast sort of continues on in various ways throughout the story, because what we then see is we see Esther start to slowly find her identity and take charge. At the end of that conversation with Mordecai, she's the one giving commands. She is the one now saying, I'll tell you what to do. Go and gather all the Jewish people and go and do all these things. Ruth stays the whole time. She listens to Naomi. She's the whole time following instructions. There's other differences that come as well throughout. And I think that the similarities and the differences teach us something very important. They're both incredibly prominent heroes in Jewish history, people from whom we can learn a huge amount. But the differences between them are really indicative of the differences between Purim and Shavuot. Esther starts off as someone who is hiding her identity. She's suppressing that ability for heroism, that ability to rise to the challenge, and she's sort of afraid. And over the course of the Megillah story, when she realizes that it's her or no one else, she's the only one who can make a difference. She rises to the challenge. She rises to the challenge of the ability of being able to save the Jewish people. She rises to that mark. Ruth, on the other hand, she starts off not Jewish, so she starts off not where she needs to be. She has a real heroic idealism, but her life remains sort of hard throughout. And eventually, when she embraces and accepts Judaism and Hashem and the Torah, from that point on, we see everything else that happens to her. We see her marriage to Boaz, and from that, the redemption story that's going to come about. And I think it teaches us something very different, because what Purim is it's about our true identity. It's about what's in us all the time. We get conflicted over the course of the year. We get confused. Other things take priority. When it comes to Purim, the whole idea of Purim is to strip away what's on the surface, to get to the truth underneath, to get beyond the surface. It's why Hashem is not mentioned in the Megillah, because it's looking beyond the surface, beyond the depth. to find the truth and the reality of the truth that is beneath that surface. And that's what we're all supposed to do on Purim. Who are we? Let's reattach ourselves to our identity. Let's stop making excuses for all the other stuff that builds up on the outside. And now let's get back, strip back to our true identity and find the courage and the strength to do what we're supposed to do. Shavuot is about something a little bit different. Shavuot is about a recognition and a realization that we are, and it's a hard realization, that we are imperfect, that we are not complete, that we are incomplete, and we need the Torah to complete us. Without the Torah, we are incomplete. We are not full. We are not as we should be. We are lacking somewhat without the Torah. This is one of the reasons that there's the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. It describes the 48 ingredients which one needs to study Torah. Does anyone want to tell us all 48 right now? No, okay. All right. So it describes the 48 ingredients which one needs to study Torah, of which one of them it says is Simcha. We have a question. Why is Simcha? I understand if you tell me I need intelligence or concentration or hard work. Simcha to study Torah. So the Maharal comments on this, and he says what Simcha means is shleimut. It means completeness. It means peace with oneself, because Torah is about completing us. It's about finding that peace and completion with ourselves. On Shavuot, we have this realization: we're not whole, we're not complete. That's why the two key characters that we read from on Shavuot are both converts, because they have this individual realization. Yitro realizes, my whole life I've been missing something until I realized the truth of Hashem. And so to Rut realizes I'm not where I need to be until I accept Hashem and Judaism upon myself. And that's what happens on Shavuot. And this reality is reflected in the two catchphrases of the days of Shavuot and Purim. What's the catchphrase of Purim? Kimu v'kiblu. There's an acceptance, but Kimu v'kiblu is like, we will establish and we will accept what we already know to be true. It's already there. The truth's already within us on Purim, but now we need to re-establish and re-accept it because it's got buried somehow. So let's go for it. What do we say on Shavuot? What's the catchphrase? Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will listen. And it's preemptive because we're saying, we now appreciate and know and understand that we're incomplete. There's something missing from our life. There's a hole. There's something not quite there. So we will do and we will listen even before we know what it is, because now we're the first stage is accepting we're missing something. And from there, we can accept the Torah and everything that comes with us. There's just a lesson, I think, there from the contrast, both important stories, both in different points of the year, different points of life. But if we can accept going into Shavuot, the reality of Rut, we can realize, look within ourselves and realize we need to have the Torah to complete us. Then we will find that simcha, that shleimut, that peace with ourselves and that completeness as we re-accept it for another year going forward.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was very good to have you up your sleeve all these little.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, everyone. 2 years will be with you.
Really great. Thank you so much. Okay, so sorry, apologies for Rabbi Mason not being here, but I'm sure we will get an explanation at some stage, and he will come again. But
He's going to be here on Shavuot.
yeah, he's going to be a Shavuot.
So
So
we'll
maybe
hear a lot from
he'll listen to your share now, and he'll. Yeah. Okay, so I will sign off for those on Zoom, and then we'll do the bracha corona.
Thanks, Avi.
Right. Okay. Bye.